How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jason. I'll be your host on this CFL talk show, Hussey's Huddle. In this video, we're going to be talking about the biggest need for every CFL team going into the 2021 CFL Draft, and what players each team can target to address those issues. But really quickly, before we get started, if you want to support the channel, the best way to do it is by hitting that like button and subscribing to Hussey's Huddle for more CFL content just like this. I want to thank each and every one of you for your support once again, and with that said, let's get into it. With the vast majority of player movement behind us in free agency, it is becoming much easier to envision the roster holes present on each CFL roster. And with this in mind, I'm going to present my biggest draft need for every CFL team in the order in which they will pick this spring. With that said, we start with number 1, the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And the biggest need I'm going with for the Tiger Cats is wide receiver. Hamilton projects to have a loaded national group up front on the offensive line, as well as defensive starters like Ted Laurent and Tunde Adeleke. What's lacking, however, is a Canadian pass catcher that can step in and contribute. Currently, the Tiger Cats have an unproven mix of guys in terms of national receivers in former first-round pick David Ungerer, 2020 third-round pick Tyler Ternowski, and career special teamer Brian Jones. So it makes sense for Hamilton to add a higher potential prospect to this group to round out the unit. Terrell Jana is really the one guy that I would say would be a fit here at number 1 if they were to go wide receiver. Moving on to number 2, we have the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and for the Riders, I'm going with their biggest need being defensive line. Not the most urgent of needs in the world here for the Riders, but I think with the cap casualty of Zach Evans, combined with the age of current starting defensive tackle McConaughey Henry, it makes sense to swing for someone that can develop into a starter a few years down the road. The current national defensive line group for Saskatchewan consists of Henry, like I mentioned, and guys who have flash potential in limited opportunities like Charbel Debayer, as well as a veteran depth guy in Jordan Reeves. A couple of guys Saskatchewan might target for this spot include NC State defensive end Daniel Joseph, who Marshall Ferguson on CFL.ca recently mocked as the number 1 pick in the draft, or Central Michigan's Mohamed Diallo is another option there if they want to go the interior defensive line route. At number 3, Winnipeg is going to be on the clock, and for them, the pick here is defensive back. Winnipeg has many well-established national players, but I think defensive back is one area I think they could really solidify in the draft. After losing very promising prospect Carvalho Exame to Montreal in free agency, the team currently stands with just the Hallett brothers, Nick and Noah, as their national pieces on the back end. 2 names to watch Winnipeg to target in the 2021 draft are North Carolina's Patrice Rene or Saskatchewan's Nelson Lacombo, whose brother, Bo Lacombo, has been an established CFL player for many years now. Moving on to number 4, we have the BC Lions, and the pick here is offensive line. This one is very obvious, with the Lions desperately needing to develop a more sturdy offensive line. The projected lineup up front for BC sees 3 Americans in Joel Figueroa, Riker Matthews, and Philip Norman, alongside Suk Chung, the lone guaranteed national starter for the unit. What they do with the 5th spot is up in the air currently, but national options that are currently on the roster are filled with guys that either haven't played a ton or guys that have not looked good in action that they have seen in the CFL. I've said multiple times in past videos that BC should have invested heavily in the offensive line in free agency, but that honestly never came about in any significant way. In my opinion, there's no doubt the Lions need to select the best offensive lineman available when they pick at number 4. For example, a guy like Logan Brandy, if he's still available at the 4th pick, could be the play here because he's probably not going to go to the NFL like a top-rated prospect in this draft, Alaric Jackson would, and could be an instant plug-and-play kind of guy. At number 5, the Edmonton football team, which still doesn't have a name. I'm wondering when that's going to be. The pick here is linebacker. This is another team that's really difficult to pin down, as Edmonton has solid national depth just about everywhere. Even if they don't plan on starting any national players at the linebacker position, it's a spot that I can see the team adding an elite prospect in the 1st round. There aren't any notable national linebackers on the team's current roster, so adding one with high potential makes sense for the team's future ratio flexibility in my opinion. The top linebacker prospects in this class, who might both be available when Edmonton picks at number 5, are Deshaun Stevens out of Maine and Amen Ogbamiga from Oklahoma State, who may get drafted in the NFL, but may not, because I've heard some people think that he doesn't have the requisite size necessarily to play linebacker in the NFL, so he might be an ideal CFL linebacker, where more undersized linebackers kind of are the norm. Next, the Ottawa Redblacks at number 6, and the pick here is offensive line once again. A few places you can go here for the Redblacks, but due to the offseason losses of tackle Jason Lazon-Seguin and guard Evan Johnson, it would be wise for the team to invest another first rounder in the offensive line. General manager Marcel Desjardins, who has been the GM ever since the team came back to Ottawa in 2014, has a consistent track record of taking an offensive lineman in the first round, and expect that trend to continue, honestly, in 2021. I would be shocked if there's a pick for any other position for Ottawa. There are plenty of offensive line prospects that should be available at number 6. Sage Dockstexer out of New Mexico is quite literally a huge prospect, standing at 6'7", 350 pounds, that could be molded into the team's future answer at right tackle with a few years of development. And Ottawa's really shown a great ability in the past with guys like Nolan McMillan, Alex Mateus, developing these young offensive linemen and turning them into very, very consistent CFL starters. At number 7, we have the Toronto Argonauts on the clock, and I'm going with defensive back here. I can certainly place offensive line as the top need for the Argos as well, but they seem very invested in their existing national prospects like Jamal Campbell, who they've been developing for years, despite what my eyes tell me is just not a very good offensive lineman in the CFL, at least at tackle. So instead, the pick here is to go with defensive back. There are a few Canadian pieces the Argos have in the secondary, like projected starter Arjun Colquhoun and youngster Matt Boateng, but the team released Bo Lacombo this offseason, who I thought was really going to give this unit a big physical punch as a box safety linebacker hybrid kind of guy. So that's really what's missing from this defense. Of course, when you add Muamba and Judge to the linebacking core, that's less of a concern, but I think they could really add a physical defensive back. When you look over the available draft prospects at defensive back, Benjamin St. Just from the University of Minnesota meets the profile of a big physical defensive back that could potentially play a little linebacker in this sub-packages in addition to being a fit as a box safety in the CFL. And so I think he would be a good fit for the Argos at number 7. At number 8, the Calgary Stampeders on the clock, and the pick here is defensive line. The loss of Shane Bergman to retirement hurts Calgary's offensive line going into 2021. But like Toronto, I think there are some prospects that the team has invested plenty of time in, like Justin Lawrence, that I think the team wants to see play out this season. So here I'm going with defensive line. Veteran defensive tackle Derek Wigan is still in place, but the team doesn't really have a national that is capable of replacing his skill set in the event of an injury. I loved Isaac Ademi Berglund in the draft last year, but he projects as more of an edge player at the CFL level, while veteran free agent signing Connor McGuff is unfortunately more of a tweener without an ideal CFL position, which, even though he's a solid rotational player, he's not really capable of being a full-time CFL starter. Other nationals on the defensive line for Calgary haven't really proved much at the CFL level. So in my mind, the play here for the Stamps is to add a defensive tackle at some point in the 2021 draft. However, out of the top potential prospects along the defensive line, nearly all of them project as edge players at the CFL level. So the team is probably best served going with the best player available with the 8th pick and addressing that defensive tackle need later on in the draft. And at number 9, we have the Montrealouettes. The Tiger Cats actually own Montreal's selection at number 9, so the team won't actually pick until the 10th slot, the first pick of the second round. However, the need here is clear: offensive line, specifically at guard. The surprise retirement of up-and-coming lineman Trey Rutherford is honestly a huge loss for this group, a unit that really wasn't spectacular to begin with. There are some existing options for the Alouettes to fill the void left by Rutherford, such as replacement-level starter Philippe Gagnon, and the team may just get lucky in 2021 if highly touted 2020 second-round pick Carter O'Donnell is released by the Indianapolis Colts. He was actually projected to go number 1 in the 2020 CFL Draft for the longest time before he started receiving NFL interest, which caused his stock to drop. He actually made it onto the Colts practice squad and stayed there for the rest of the 2020 season, so it'll be interesting to follow that situation. But the Alouettes should not honestly bank on those solutions like Gagnon and O'Donnell. Instead, look for the Owls to select another lineman at number 10. Not that I'm being original here, but look for Montreal GM Danny Machocha to target local prospect Pierre-Olivier Lestage, who he coached with the Montreal Caravans in U Sports. And with that said, that is going to be the end of this video, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank everyone for watching. Once again, my name is Jason. If you want to support the channel, the best way to do it is by liking the video and subscribing to Hussey's Huddle for more CFL content just like this. Be sure to let me know in the comment section below, what player would you like to see your team select in the 2021 CFL Draft? And with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.